That day was my daughter's birthday, and I arrived at her house early with the cake she loved. I knocked on the door with a smile, hoping to see her face light up the way it did when she was little. But when the door opened, her expression was nothing but irritation, as if she didn't want to see me. "Oh, it's you, Mom?" she muttered, not even looking me in the eye. I still remember the smell of the almond cake covered in chocolate ganache that I brought to my daughter Emily's house that afternoon. It was her 43rd birthday, and I had saved 3 months of my pension to buy that little masterpiece of French pastry she adored. $120 I really didn't have, but happily spent just to see her smile. The taxi stopped in front of the mansion I had once helped her buy 5 years earlier, a 3-story house in the most exclusive area of Miami Beach, overlooking the ocean with an infinity pool. $45,000 from my life savings had gone into that down payment. That money had been saved penny by penny over 45 years of teaching at a university, tutoring and working weekends. I straightened the new emerald green dress I had bought for the special occasion, one hand holding the cake, the other clutching a small silver-wrapped box that contained my mother's pearl bracelet. 3 generations of strong women, I thought, a beautiful legacy to pass on. The door opened, but Emily's face didn't brighten the way I'd hoped. Her eyes just skimmed over me before locking back on the phone in her hand. "Oh, it's you, Mom?" she muttered again, stepping aside so I could enter. No kiss, no hug, as if I were just a delivery person. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," I said, trying to keep my voice cheerful. "I brought your favorite cake and a very special gift." Emily sighed deeply, as if my presence was a burden she had to endure. "Put it on the kitchen counter. I need to finish this call," I quietly. I walked into the marble-tiled kitchen, another gift I had paid for when she remodeled the house, and gently set the cake on the counter. Through the window, I saw the twins, my 11-year-old grandchildren, splashing in the pool with their swim coach. They didn't even notice I was there. I stood in silence, listening to the echoes in the empty house, feeling like an intruder in a place where I clearly wasn't welcome. 15 minutes later, Emily walked into the kitchen. She looked as glamorous as ever, perfectly dyed hair, flawless makeup, manicured nails, all of it funded by the cosmetic clinic I had financed for her 8 years earlier, $20,000 so she could launch her dream business. A loan secured with my own condo, never repaid. She opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of sparkling water, and asked in a voice sharp as a blade, "Are you just here to drop off the cake, or are you staying for dinner?" I swallowed my disappointment. "I thought maybe we could spend some time together for your birthday. We haven't seen each other in almost 2 months. She answered, eyes still on her phone. "Actually, I have plans tonight. Matthew is taking me to Ocean Prime. Just the 2 of us. Matthew, her 3rd husband, a man living off vague investments who always seemed to need my help for some urgent project. The most recent was just 3 weeks ago. $3,500 for an import venture he claimed couldn't wait. Money I had to pull from my medical savings." "I see," I said, forcing steadiness into my voice. "Maybe we could have lunch tomorrow?" Emily rolled her eyes and finally looked at me. Her face tightened, as if she'd been holding back words for a long time. "Mom, we need to talk." She gestured to the bar stools around the kitchen island. "Sit." My stomach clenched. I knew that tone, the one she used as a child before saying something cruel just to test my limits. "I've been thinking a lot lately," she began, swirling her glass of water. "About birthdays, about life, about what truly makes me happy." I nodded, trying to encourage her. "Of course, sweetheart. Tell me what you want. Maybe I can help." Emily set her glass down with a loud clink and stared straight into my eyes, What I saw froze me. Not love, not even fleeting annoyance, but pure contempt. "The only thing I really want for my birthday," she said slowly, emphasizing each word with deliberate cruelty, "is for you to disappear from my life, better yet, for you to just die." The world stopped. The air was sucked out of the room. My throat locked. My chest felt punched from the inside. "What?" was all I could whisper. "You heard me," she continued, her voice now cold and calculated. "I'm tired of you, tired of the constant calls, the surprise visits, the way you keep intruding on my life with outdated advice and unbearable emotional needs." My hands began to tremble uncontrollably. 74 years of life, 43 years of motherhood, and never once had I imagined hearing words like that from my only child. "Emily," I sobbed, voice breaking. "I'm your mother. I gave you everything. I sacrificed everything for you." "Exactly," she snapped, rising from her chair. "And that's why you're suffocating me. I can't breathe with you hovering over me. I need space. I need freedom. I need to live my life without your expectations and emotional drama weighing me down." I glanced at the birthday cake, candles still in their box, waiting to be lit. Everything I had envisioned for that day, hugs, laughter, shared memories, evaporated like smoke. "But Emily," I tried one last time, "all I want is to be close to you, to be part of your life. You're all I have." "And that's exactly the problem," she replied, arms crossed. "That I'm all you have. Take care of your own life, and leave me alone." I stood, my legs shaking so badly I thought they might give way. I grabbed my purse and the small silver gift box with the pearl bracelet. The cake would stay behind. Maybe the twins would enjoy it, even if their mother did not. "I can't believe you'd say this," I whispered. "After everything I've done for you, everything you've done," she sneered, "was just to make yourself feel needed, to control my life. But I'm not a child anymore, and I don't need you suffocating me." I walked to the door, every step draining years from my body. At the threshold, I turned back one last time, desperate for a flicker of regret in her eyes, some trace of the sweet little girl I once raised. But all I saw was impatience for me to leave so she could get back to her life, free of the burden that, in her mind, was me. "Happy birthday, Emily," I whispered, then stepped out, closing the door softly behind me. What my daughter didn't know as she watched me leave that sunny afternoon was that she had awakened something in me long, dormant, a fire, not of destruction, but of rebirth. The taxi took me back to my small downtown apartment, a modest 2-bedroom I had bought with the money from selling our family home after my husband passed away 20 years earlier. I staggered inside, dropped my bag on the floor, and collapsed onto the old sofa, the same sofa where I once cradled Emily as a child, where I read her bedtime stories, where I wiped her tears after disappointments. Her words echoed in my head like a merciless refrain, that I should die. My daughter had wished for her mother's death as a birthday gift. The pain became tangible, a weight on my chest that made it hard to breathe. I lay awake all night, replaying every moment, every sacrifice, every dollar I had spent on her over 4 decades. When Emily was 5 and diagnosed with severe asthma, I worked extra shifts at the university to cover treatments outside insurance $1,000 for medication and doctor visits, money I raised by selling the wedding jewelry my husband had given me. At 16, when she wanted to join a student exchange program in Europe, I mortgaged my condo to pay $14,000 for it. "Thank you, Mom," she had said back then, hugging me tightly at the airport. You're the best mother in the world. Words that now sounded like they belonged to another lifetime, another child. In college, when Emily changed majors 3 times from law to architecture to business management, I paid tuition every semester without complaint. Nearly $27,000 in total, earned by tutoring on weekends and holidays, sacrificing any personal life I might have had. When she married her first husband, a lavish wedding for 300 guests at the city's most luxurious hotel, I paid the entire $25,000. The designer gown, imported flowers, live band, and gourmet banquet. "This is the happiest day of my life, Mom." She had beamed in her princess dress. "And it's all thanks to you." The divorce came 2 years later, followed by a second marriage even more expensive, which ended in under 3 years. Then came Matthew, her current husband. The 3-story house, the cosmetic clinic, the luxury car I helped buy when the old one broke down $13,000. The private bilingual school for the twins, $2,800 per semester. By morning, I began to calculate. I found the old box where I kept every receipt, bank slip, and contract I had signed over the years, not out of suspicion but habit. An old math teacher never loses her sense of order. Sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of cold tea I couldn't bring myself to drink, I listed every expense, every date, every reason. The number stunned me: over $280,000 across 43 years. Nearly $300,000 I had poured into my daughter's happiness. And in return, the only gift she wished for was my death. Something shifted inside me as I stared at those figures. The searing pain of the night before transformed into something else. Not quite anger, though there was anger, but a clarity sharper than glass, unlike anything I had ever felt. A profound understanding that for decades I had been exploited by someone who saw my love as a tool, not a sacred bond. If I had invested those nearly $300,000 in myself, if I had traveled, studied, bought a better home, cared for my health, planned for a comfortable retirement, where would I be now? Certainly not in this tiny apartment, counting pennies from a meager pension, postponing medical treatment to keep helping a daughter who once wished me dead. At 6 a.m., I did something I had never done before. I picked up my phone and blocked Emily's number. Then I blocked Matthew's. Then every number tied to their household. A small act, but one with enormous symbolic power. The first act of self-preservation I had taken in over 4 decades. I took a long shower, dressed in my nicest clothes, the slacks and blazer I rarely wore to save money, and left home with a clear purpose that, for once, had nothing to do with my daughter. My first stop, the bank. The very bank where Emily and I shared an emergency joint account, where I had faithfully deposited small amounts to cover whatever crisis she might face. That account held $10,000. "Good morning, Mrs. Patricia." Mr. Johnson, the branch manager I'd known for years, greeted me. "What can I do for you today?" "I'd like to close joint account number 4,526,789Y1, I replied, my voice calm to the point of surprising myself. "Are you sure?" "That account has a significant balance," he reminded me as he looked at his screen. "I'm absolutely sure," I confirmed, signing the papers with a steady hand. "Please transfer the entire balance into my personal BETUS account." Watching $10,000 flow back into my own name gave me a strange sense of power. Power I hadn't felt in decades. That was just the beginning. My next stop was the real estate finance office. When Emily and Matthew bought their oceanfront mansion, I hadn't just contributed to the down payment I had signed on as guarantor of their mortgage, which meant that if they failed to pay, I was responsible. But it also meant I had legal rights to that property. Mrs. Patricia, Miss Miller, the loan officer, greeted me with a professional smile. "What brings you in today?" "I'd like to review the terms of the mortgage where I'm listed as guarantor," I explained. "I need to understand my rights and obligations." As she searched for the file, I remembered the day I signed those papers. Emily had cried with gratitude. "Thank you, Mom. You're my guardian angel." "I love you so much," she'd said, hugging me tightly. Matthew had thanked me repeatedly, swearing they would never miss a single payment. "Here are all the documents, Mrs." Anderson said, placing a thick file in front of me. "As guarantor, you are responsible for the payments if the primary borrower cannot. But you also have the right to claim the property if you believe the borrowers can no longer meet their obligations." "That's right," I nodded, carefully reading each page. "What would be the next steps if I decide to exercise that right? You would need to prove there is risk of default or that there have already been significant delays," she explained. "What, Mrs.?" Anderson didn't know, and what Emily had carelessly revealed to me the week before was that Matthew had just lost a large sum in a failed deal, and they had already fallen behind on their latest mortgage payment. It was a detail she let slip, perhaps hoping I would step in as I always had. "Perfect," I murmured, carefully taking copies of the key documents. "And if I want to initiate that process?" I asked. Mrs. Anderson looked at me with curiosity but stayed professional. "I can arrange a meeting with the legal department if you'd like." "Please do." As I walked out of the office, I felt an odd sense of lightness, as though I were gliding over the scorching Miami pavement. For 43 years I had lived for Emily. I had sacrificed my dreams, my money, my time, my health, just to give her the life she wanted. And in return, her birthday wish was for me to die. My next stop was a place I hadn't visited in years, New Horizons, a travel company specializing in fresh starts for seniors. I had kept one of their brochures tucked away for ages, secretly dreaming of things that once felt impossible. "Good afternoon." A young consultant named Amanda greeted me warmly. "How can I help you today?" "I saw your program about retirees living abroad," I said as I took a seat. "I'd like full information on how a 74-year-old woman can begin a new life in Spain." The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions and secret preparations. Every morning I woke with a mix of pain, determination, and something I hadn't felt in years, hope. It was as if I had awakened from a long coma, where I lived only to serve my daughter's demands. And now, finally, I was living for myself. On Tuesday, my phone rang constantly. It was Emily. I ignored the call. She tried 5 more times, leaving increasingly irritated messages. "Mom, I need to talk to you." "Mom, are you okay? Why aren't you answering?" "Mom, the twins have a recital on Thursday, and we need you to watch them afterward." "Mom, I'm starting to get worried." The irony wasn't lost on me. The same daughter who had wished I'd vanish as a birthday gift now panicked because I wasn't picking up, not out of love or concern, but because she needed something from me. On Wednesday, I welcomed my longtime neighbor and friend Martha into my apartment. She was 70 years old and had quietly witnessed my decades of sacrifice for Emily. "Patricia," she said, sitting in my living room with a hot cup of coffee. "You look different. What's going on?" I told her everything. Every cruel word Emily had spoken on her birthday. Every detail of the plan I was putting in motion. Martha listened silently, her eyes filling with tears. "My God, Patricia," she whispered. "I can't believe Emily would say something so cruel after all you've done for her." "The hardest part," I explained, was that she said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world, as if I were just an obstacle she needed to remove. So yes, I really am moving to Spain. You're serious? Completely, I said firmly. I've already bought my ticket. I'm leaving next week. Martha squeezed my hand tightly. You know you have my full support, don't you? What Emily did is unforgivable. There's one more thing. I lowered my voice. I need your help with something special. I explained my plan in full. I wanted Emily to believe I had died at least for a while. Martha would be my accomplice, the one to find my empty apartment and the farewell letter I left behind. Brilliant, Martha nodded in agreement. That ungrateful girl will finally understand what it means to lose you. I'll help. That night, I wrote the most important letter of my life, a letter that would change everything forever. I rewrote it again and again, making sure it said exactly what I intended. My dearest Emily, I began. You wished I would disappear from your life as a birthday gift, and I have decided to grant that wish. By the time you read this, I will already be far from here, starting the life I should have lived decades ago instead of sacrificing everything for you. I continued for hours, documenting every dollar I had spent on her, every sacrifice I had made, every private opportunity I had abandoned just to be available for her needs. But it wasn't a bitter letter, it was a lesson. I wanted her to understand exactly what she had lost. Along with this letter, you will find all the legal documents I signed this week, I wrote. The updated will, the cancellation of the supplemental health insurance I paid on your behalf, the notice that as guarantor of your mortgage I have chosen to exercise my rights due to your unstable finances, and the termination of all benefits you once received from me. It was 18 pages long, detailing every change that would now reshape her life in my absence, just as she had wished. Your life will indeed be easier without me, I concluded, but it will also be far more expensive. I hope it's worth it. On Thursday, as I packed my most important belongings into 2 suitcases, Emily called again. I didn't answer. She called 4 more times, leaving increasingly desperate messages. By the final one, her voice was frantic. Mom, please call me back. Something's happened. I need your help. The bank just called us in for an urgent meeting about the mortgage. Please call me as soon as you hear this. So that was it. The bank had contacted her about my request to review the loan. Reality was setting in. On Friday, Matthew showed up at my door. He looked exhausted and desperate, with dark circles under his eyes and an unshaven face, a far cry from the polished man I once knew. Patricia, he said, his voice pleading. Emily told me what happened between you two. I know what she said was horrible, even unforgivable, but please don't do this to our family. Do what? I asked, feigning innocence. The bank said you've started the process to claim the house because of the missed mortgage payment. Please, Patricia, just 1 month. I hit some investment snags, but I'll fix it, I promise. How fascinating. When Emily wanted me gone, I was a burden, but now that they realized I controlled the financial thread holding their luxurious life together, suddenly I was important again. Matthew, I said calmly, your wife was very clear. My presence in her life is a burden she no longer wants. I'm simply respecting her wishes. But Patricia, you know how Emily is. She just says things when she's angry. She didn't mean it. Didn't mean it. Because it sounded very convincing when she wished me dead as a birthday gift. Matthew lowered his head. He knew there was no excuse for the inexcusable. Please, he begged, give me a chance to make it right. I'll talk to Emily. I'll make her see how wrong she was. It's too late, I said, slowly closing the door. Kiss the twins for me. Saturday was my last day in the city where I had lived my entire life. I walked through the places that had once mattered: the university where I taught for 38 years, the park where I had taken Emily as a child, the church where I married her father. It was a quiet farewell to a life I had lived entirely for others. On Sunday, I would begin a life that was finally for myself. On Sunday morning, Martha knocked on my door right on schedule. She brought fresh coffee and a conspiratorial smile. "Ready for the great escape?" she asked with a wink. "More than ready," I answered, pulling my 2 suitcases to the door. "You have the spare keys to my apartment, right?" "Right here," she said, holding up the keychain I had given her the night before. "And I have the letter for Emily and all the documents you wanted me to deliver. We had planned everything carefully." Martha would wait until Tuesday to visit Emily's apartment, pretending she was worried after not hearing from me for 2 days. That's when she would hand over the papers, claiming she found my place empty and the farewell letter inside. "Remember," I reminded her as we waited for the taxi, "you need to act truly. I'm concerned. Say you called me with no answer, knocked with no reply, and when you used the emergency key, you discovered the apartment empty and the letter. Don't worry, Patricia. I taught amateur theater for 20 years. This will be the performance of my life." Martha grinned mischievously. The taxi arrived at 6 a.m. As the driver loaded my luggage into the trunk, I looked one last time at the apartment I had lived in for 15 years. Strangely, I felt no sadness. It was as if I were finally free from a prison of my own making. "Airport?" the driver asked. "Airport," I confirmed, feeling those 2 words mark the beginning of a new life. The flight to Barcelona was long but peaceful. For the first time in decades, no one knew where I was. No one could call to ask for money, favors, or my time. It was an intoxicating freedom I hadn't tasted since before becoming a mother. For nearly 12 hours in the air, I wrote in my journal every detail, every emotion, every choice that had brought me to this moment, suspended between a past of sacrifice and a future of self-discovery. "This is the first time in 43 years," I wrote, "that I am doing something entirely for myself, without considering whether it benefits Emily. It's both terrifying and liberating." I arrived in Barcelona on Monday morning, local time. A representative from the travel company was waiting at the airport, holding a sign with my name. He was a kind young man named Miguel, speaking Spanish with a heavy Catalan accent. "Mrs. Patricia," he smiled, "welcome to Spain. I hope you're ready for a new adventure." "More than ready," I replied, and for the first time in weeks, my smile was completely genuine. Miguel drove me to a small but charming apartment in the Gothic quarter that the company had rented for me for a month to see if I wanted to stay long-term. It was on the 3rd floor of a century-old building, with windows overlooking a tree-lined square and a balcony overflowing with flowers. "Here's all the city information," Miguel said, handing me a thick folder recommended restaurants, cultural events, expat groups, Catalan language classes, healthcare contacts. "I've also scheduled a meeting with a financial advisor on Wednesday to help with paperwork if you decide to stay." That afternoon, after a short rest, I did something I hadn't done in years. I took a walk without purpose, without a clock, without commitments, without anyone waiting for me to solve their problems. I wandered through the narrow, winding streets of the Gothic quarter, marveling at the medieval architecture, the tiny corner cafes, the artisan shops. I sat in a square, ordered a café con leche and a plate of churros. I ate slowly, savoring each bite, watching pigeons, tourists, and locals. A strange feeling rose in my chest, not sadness, not guilt, but peace. On my way back to the apartment at dusk, I mentally calculated what I had spent on Emily in just the past 5 years. The down payment on the house, the cosmetic clinic, the car, the twins' tuition, the endless emergencies, at least $120,000. Money I could have used to travel the world, live comfortably, fulfill the dreams I had postponed for decades. But instead, I had poured it all into a daughter who saw her mother's love as a burden, her mother's presence as an annoyance. 8 p.m. in Barcelona, 2 p.m. in Miami. Martha was probably on her way to Emily's house with the letter that would change everything. I sat on the little balcony of my temporary apartment, sipping Spanish red wine and waiting. I knew in just a few hours my phone would ring nonstop. Emily would finally understand what it meant to truly lose me. At midnight, my phone vibrated over and over. It was Emily. I let it ring until it stopped. Then it started again, call after call. By the 5th time, I picked up. "Mom!" she screamed, her voice choked with tears. "Where are you? Martha came over with your letter. She said you disappeared. What is this? Why would you do something so crazy?" "Hello, Emily," I answered calmly, my eyes on the old city lights. "Did you read the letter?" "Yes. Are you insane? How could you do this to us? Where are you?" "I'm exactly where I need to be away from you, just like you wished." "But I didn't mean it. I didn't mean for you to really leave. I was just mad, just upset." Classic Emily. Downplaying the consequences she created, twisting things so I'd feel guilty for reacting to her cruelty. "You didn't mean it when you said the greatest birthday gift would be if I died?" I asked. Because at the time it sounded very convincing. I was just stressed. Matthew lost money on an investment. The kids are causing trouble at school. The clinic isn't doing well. I shouldn't have taken it out on you. You're right. You shouldn't have. But you did. And words once spoken cannot be taken back. But Mom, please come back. We need you. I need you. How interesting. Now she needed me. After reading the letter listing every financial benefit she had lost, after realizing she could lose the house, after understanding she'd have to pay her own health insurance and find childcare when she wanted to go out. "Do you need me or do you need my money?" I asked bluntly. There was a long silence. "I need you," she whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. "Emily, for 43 years I lived for you. I sacrificed my dreams, my money, my time, my opportunities. And when I needed to feel loved, valued, you told me you wanted me dead." Those words broke my heart in a way it can never be repaired. "I'm sorry, Mom. I really am sorry." "Sorry isn't enough, Emily. The damage is done. And you know what? Maybe that was the best thing you ever said to me, because it opened my eyes and made me realize I'd been living wrong all along." "What do you mean?" she asked. "I mean that for the first time in decades, I'm living for myself, and it feels wonderful." "Where are you?" "Please tell me," Emily begged, her voice trembling. "The kids are asking about Grandma. They don't understand why you're gone." Strange, isn't it? Only when I was no longer available did they miss me. All those years I canceled plans to babysit, bought expensive gifts, took them to the park so Emily could shop. Those were just taken for granted. But now that I was gone, my absence was finally real. "The kids will be fine," I replied, looking up at the stars over Barcelona. "They're resilient. What they'll learn is that actions have consequences, and cruel words can destroy relationships forever." "But Mom, please, you can't just vanish like this. What if something happens to you? If you get sick, how would we even know? Now she worried about my health. How convenient. In the past 3 years, I'd been hospitalized twice for high blood pressure. Do you know how many times she visited me? Not once. You always had something more important to do. That's not true, she protested weakly. It is true. The first time I called from the ER, you said you couldn't come because you had a party at a friend's house. The second time, it was Matthew's birthday, and you were celebrating. The silence on the other end confirmed she remembered both times. I didn't think it was serious, she muttered. Exactly. Because my health was never your priority, but my money was. It's not about money, Emily shouted. It's about you. I miss you. You miss me, or do you miss having someone available 24 hours a day to fix your problems? I hung up before she could answer. The phone rang again, but this time I turned it off completely. I needed silence to savor my first night of freedom in a new country. The days that followed became a journey of rediscovery, not just of Barcelona, but of myself. Parts of my personality, my passions, my desires that had slept for decades were finally waking up now that I no longer lived for Emily. One by one, they bloomed like flowers after a long drought. I discovered a fascination with Gothic architecture, losing myself for hours in the details of Barcelona's grand cathedral. I realized I had a natural gift for languages, and Catalan, with its similarities to Spanish, wasn't nearly as hard as I once thought. I rediscovered my love for mathematics, the subject I had taught for years, but had long abandoned for joy's sake. On Wednesday, I had an appointment with a Spanish financial advisor. He was an older man named Ferrer, who patiently explained all my options for applying for long-term residency in Spain. With your current savings and U.S. pension, he explained, you can live comfortably here for many years. Spain offers excellent healthcare programs for foreign retirees, and the quality of life in Barcelona is truly exceptional. For the first time in years, I spoke openly about my finances without worrying about saving for Emily's emergencies. It was liberating to calculate my expenses based only on my own needs and wants. You could also invest part of your savings here in Spain, Ferrer added. It's stable and safe. In 5 years, you could grow your wealth significantly if you invest wisely. Grow my wealth. How many times had I had that chance, but always chose instead to spend on my daughter's endless demands? Is there anything else I should know? I asked. We have many clients in situations like yours, he said with a sympathetic smile. Older people who come to Spain seeking a new beginning after complicated family relationships. You are not alone. That information soothed me. I wasn't the only mother who had been used and discarded by ungrateful children. There was a whole community of people who chose their own happiness over toxic family demands. On Friday, I joined a walking group for senior expats. There were 12 of us, all between 65 and 80 years old, all searching for adventure and new experiences. On the hike through the hills surrounding Barcelona, I spoke with a 76-year-old Italian woman named Luisa, who had moved to Spain 3 years earlier. What brought you here? She asked as we gazed over the city. A daughter who once told me the best birthday gift she could get was for me to die, I replied bluntly. I no longer had the energy to hide the truth. Luisa's eyes widened. Really? Completely true. After I paid for her house, nearly raised her children, and sacrificed my retirement for her needs, she told me my presence was an unbearable burden. My God, Luisa whispered. And what did you do? I disappeared from her life. And now I'm here. Luisa smiled with admiration. You're very brave. It took me 7 years to leave my toxic family. My son and daughter-in-law treated me like a walking ATM. As we walked down the shaded trail, we shared our stories. Luisa explained that she came to Spain after realizing her adult children only called when they needed money for vacations, new cars, or hobbies. When she set boundaries, they accused her of being a selfish mother and threatened to keep her from her grandchildren. The first months were hard, Luisa admitted. I was eaten alive by guilt. I thought maybe I really was selfish, that a good mother should always sacrifice for her children. So, what changed your perspective? I asked. I realized my children had never once asked if I was happy, if I had enough money for my own needs, or if their constant demands hurt me. They only cared about what I could give them. That's not love, Patricia, it's exploitation. Her words struck deep. For decades, I had confused emotional manipulation with parental love, endless demands with true needs. At the end of the hike, Luisa invited me to join a support group that met every 2 weeks. It was for older women who had made the difficult choice to put their peace above their family's toxic expectations. I agreed instantly. That night, I turned on my phone for the first time in 3 days. There were 78 missed calls and 32 messages. Most were from Emily and Matthew, but some were from unfamiliar numbers, probably their friends, trying to help track me down. I read through the texts in order, watching Emily's panic evolve. At first, they were emotional. "Mom, please come back. We need you. The kids are crying for you." But soon they became desperate and financial. The bank called again. "They said you requested a review of the guarantor agreement. They can't take the house over this misunderstanding." By the 4th day, the messages had turned accusatory. "This is ridiculous, Mom. You're destroying our lives over a tantrum. Grow up and come back." And finally, pure desperation. "I've called every hospital, the police, your friends. No one knows where you are. If something happens to you, it will be my fault. Please, just let me know you're okay." It was fascinating to observe. Not once did Emily truly apologize for wishing me dead. Not once did she admit her cruelty or express real remorse. Everything revolved around the negative consequences my absence caused her. I decided to respond to one final message. "I am perfectly fine and happier than I've been in years. What you are experiencing now is the natural consequence of your actions. I hope this teaches you to value the people you love before it's too late with someone else." The reply came instantly. "Mom, please, we can fix this. I promise I'll never say such a horrible thing again. Just come back." I wrote my final response. "Empty promises cannot mend a shattered heart. Emily, your words revealed what you failed at Eversand. Truly think of me. You cannot erase that truth with desperate pledges." After sending it, I blocked her number, every number connected to Matthew, and all the strange numbers that had been calling. It was time to close this chapter forever. The following week, I met again with Mr. Ferrer to sign the paperwork for long-term residency in Spain. I also arranged to transfer my U.S. pension fully and began the process of selling my Miami apartment. "Are you certain you want to make this permanent?" Mr. Ferrer asked. "This is a very big decision." "I've never been more certain," I replied, signing each document with a steady hand. "For the first time in decades, I am making choices based on my own happiness, not on someone else's demands." That afternoon, I received a call from Martha, my loyal neighbor and ally. Her voice was bubbling with energy. "Patricia, you won't believe it. Emily came to my house yesterday, sobbing hysterically. She begged me to tell you to come back, said it was all a horrible misunderstanding." "And what did you say?" I told her the truth, that what she said to you was unforgivable, and if I were you, I'd disappear forever, too. You should have seen her face when she realized even the neighbors knew how cruel she'd been to you. Martha went on. She said that without you, they can't pay the mortgage. The bank is pressuring them. Matthew can't fix their financial mess, and the kids need school supplies they can't afford. In short, she only realized everything you did for them after you were gone, exactly as I expected. She didn't miss me as a person. She missed my role as financier and problem solver. Martha, I asked, when anyone asks about me, especially Emily, tell them I'm dead. Because in a way, that's the truth. The Patricia who sacrificed everything for an ungrateful daughter really did die on her birthday. I completely understand, Martha replied. And you know. What? I think that's the best kind of death you could have chosen. 3 weeks after arriving in Spain, my new life had begun to take shape in ways I never imagined. I enrolled in Catalan classes 3 times a week. I started a watercolor painting course on Tuesdays and Thursdays, discovering an artistic talent I never knew I had. I joined a book club for expatriates that met on Sundays. For the first time in decades, my calendar was full of activities. I chose things that brought me joy and personal growth, not obligations imposed by others. But the most unexpected change was financial. Without Emily's endless demands, my savings not only remained intact but began to grow. My investments with Mr. Ferrer were showing returns, and for the first time I could make financial plans entirely based on my own needs. On a sunny Wednesday morning in April, while sipping coffee on my balcony, I received a call from an unfamiliar international number. I hesitated, then answered. Mrs. Patricia Miller? A woman's voice with a Latin American accent asked. Yes, that's me. Who is this? I'm Raquel Mendoza, a social worker with the Department of Family Services in Miami. I'm calling because we received a complaint regarding your situation. My blood ran cold. A complaint. What kind of complaint? Your daughter, Emily Miller, alleges that you may be suffering from dementia or cognitive decline, and that you've made financial and life decisions that put you at risk. According to her, you disappeared suddenly and are living abroad in poor conditions, possibly being manipulated by others. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Emily had gone so far as to drag social services into this, inventing mental illness to invalidate my choices and force me back. Miss Mendoza, I said firmly, I am not suffering from dementia or cognitive decline. I am living in Spain by my own choice, in a comfortable apartment with excellent health care and perfectly stable mental health. My daughter's accusations are completely false. I understand, Mrs. Anderson, but we are required to verify your condition. Would you be willing to cooperate with the U.S. consulate in Spain to undergo a medical and psychological evaluation? Of course, I replied without hesitation. I'm fully prepared to undergo any assessment necessary to prove I am of sound mind and making all my decisions clearly. After we arranged the details, I hung up, furious and astonished. Emily had crossed a line she could never return from. It wasn't enough that she wished me dead. Now she was trying to destroy my reputation and sanity just to regain control over my money and my life. I immediately called my lawyer in Miami, Mr. Vargas, who had helped me prepare all my legal documents before I left. Patricia, he greeted me with a worried tone, I'm so glad to hear from you. I just had a very interesting week with your daughter. I can imagine. I just spoke with social services. Emily is accusing me of dementia. That's not all, Vargas sighed. She's also hired another lawyer to try to overturn all the legal changes you made before leaving. She claims you weren't mentally fit when you signed the documents. Can she do that? She can try, but she has no legal grounds. I have full recordings of our meetings where you demonstrated absolute clarity. On top of that, the fact that you prepared everything carefully and are living independently in Spain completely refutes her claims. What else? She attempted to access your bank accounts, saying it was out of concern for you. She also tried to block the foreclosure process. But since everything is documented legally, and she herself signed papers admitting financial difficulties recently, she has no argument. It was unbelievable that Emily was willing to go this far just to claw back financial benefits she had lost. Mr. Vargas, I want you to prepare a defamation lawsuit against my daughter. Her false accusations about my mental health could damage my reputation and legal rights. With pleasure, he replied firmly. After what I've witnessed, it's time she faced legal consequences. 2 days later, I went to the U.S. consulate in Barcelona for the medical and psychological evaluation. The assigned doctor, Dr. Torres, was experienced and quickly grasped the situation. Mrs. Anderson, he said after 3 hours of thorough examination, not only are you completely of sound mind, but the decisions you've made show admirable clarity and courage. It's clear your daughter is trying to exploit the legal system for financial gain. This will be documented officially. I'll send a full report to the Social Services Office, confirming the accusations are baseless and that you are living independently and healthily in Spain. That afternoon, I received a call from the social worker. Mrs. Anderson, we've received the medical report from the consulate. It's clear your daughter's accusations have no merit. We'll be closing the case and informing Emily that her complaint has been dismissed. Thank you, I replied. Will this be recorded? Yes. It will remain on file that she made a false accusation regarding a relative's condition, which may carry legal consequences if repeated. Perfect. Not only had Emily failed to invalidate my choices, but now there was an official record of her false claims. That night, I finally did something I had postponed for too long. I wrote a detailed account of my experience not for Emily, but for other women who might be trapped in the same cycle of manipulation and emotional abuse by adult children. I wrote for 4 hours, recounting every sacrifice, every manipulation I endured, and every step I took to reclaim my dignity and my life. I titled it, When Motherhood Turns into Self-Destruction, my story of liberation at 74. I submitted it to a blog dedicated to stories of older women finding the courage to change their lives. A week later, I received an enthusiastic response from the editor. Patricia, your story is powerful and inspiring. We've received hundreds of comments from women who completely relate to your experience. Would you be willing to do a video interview for our YouTube channel? I agreed immediately. It was time to use my experience to help other women trapped in toxic family dynamics. The interview was posted 2 weeks later and quickly went viral. Thousands of women shared similar stories of being manipulated by their adult children, both emotionally and financially. The comments section became a collection of raw pain and mutual understanding. My 37-year-old son still lives with me, doesn't pay rent, and screams at me whenever I tell him to get a job, one woman wrote. My daughter only calls when she needs money for vacations. When I was sick, she didn't even visit, another shared. I used to think I was the only mother who felt exploited by her own children, admitted a third. But the most surprising moment came a week after the interview aired. I received an email from a very familiar address. It was Matthew. Patricia, I watched your interview on YouTube. I want you to know I completely agree with you. What Emily said was unforgivable, and the way she's treated you all these years is unacceptable. I saw her manipulate and exploit you, but I never had the courage to confront it because we relied too heavily on your financial support. I also want you to know the twins miss you terribly and don't understand why you stopped visiting. Emily told them you were sick and couldn't come, but I believe they deserve to know the truth when they're older. I know it's probably too late to apologize, but I want you to know that at least one person in this family recognizes how much you sacrificed. For us, I hope you find happiness in your new life. I read that email 3 times before replying. At last I wrote, Matthew, I appreciate your honesty, but late apologies cannot erase the damage. I hope this experience makes you a better husband and father, teaching your children to cherish those who love them before it's too late. For the first time, someone in the family openly acknowledged the abuse I had endured. It didn't change my decision to keep my distance, but it gave me the validation I had long needed. My new life in Spain blossomed in ways I had never imagined. I had friends who valued me for who I was, not for what I could give. I rediscovered passions and hobbies. I had peace in my heart and financial stability. Most importantly, I had my dignity. 6 months after arriving in Spain, my life looked like something I never dared dream of. One bright spring morning, I got a call that changed everything again. It was Martha, my trusted neighbor back in the U.S. Patricia, you need to hear this. Emily lost the house. My heart skipped a beat. Despite everything, part of me still worried about the grandchildren. What happened? The bank foreclosed last week. Matthew couldn't recover the money he lost. They fell behind 3 more payments, and since you exercised your legal rights as guarantor, the bank moved forward. Emily came to see me yesterday, sobbing desperately. But the kids are okay. They moved into a small apartment across town. Matthew finally has a steady job with a travel company. The salary is much lower, but at least it's stable. Emily had to go back to work at the clinic, not as the owner, but as an employee. I felt a strange mix of emotions, not joy at their suffering, but a deep sense of justice. For the first time, Emily and Matthew were forced to live with the real consequences of their choices without anyone rushing to rescue them. Anything else? I asked. Emily asked if I knew how to contact you. She said she wanted to apologize sincerely, that she finally understands what she lost when she lost you. And what did you say? I told her some wounds cut too deep to heal, and some words can never be taken back. I also told her you were thriving in your new life, and maybe it's better for both of you if she doesn't try to reach out. Martha was right. For 6 months, I had built an inner peace I would not trade for the empty promises of a daughter who only valued me when she needed me. That afternoon, I received an unexpected call from Mr. Vargas. Patricia, I have good news. Emily's house has been sold by the bank, and since you were the guarantor, you're entitled to recover your original investment of $1.8 million plus accrued interest. How much in total? $2.1 million. The bank has already approved the transfer, and the funds will be in your account in Spain next week. It was hard to believe. Not only had I recovered my principal, but I had also gained an additional $300,000. Money that would have been lost forever if I had continued being the ever-sacrificing mother. One more thing, Mr. Vargas continued. Your Miami apartment has finally sold. After expenses, the net amount is $820,000. Altogether, nearly $3 million from assets I once thought were gone. Along with my savings and investments in Spain, my net worth now exceeded $5 million, At 74, I was wealthier than at any other point in my life. That night, I celebrated at my favorite restaurant in Plaza Real. I ordered the finest cava and raised a glass to the brave woman who had dared to begin again when it seemed everything was lost. As I enjoyed my dinner, I reflected on the journey. I had started as a broken mother, humiliated by the cruel words of an ungrateful daughter. But now, I was an independent woman, financially secure, surrounded by genuine friends, living the life I had always dreamed of. The next day, I decided to do something I had been considering for weeks: write a full book about my experience, not just my life story, but a practical guide for older women trapped in toxic family relationships. I reached out to a Spanish publisher specializing in self-help and personal development. The editor, a woman named Montserrat, was immediately interested. "Patricia," she said, "your story touches on an issue millions of women face but rarely speak about openly. Emotional abuse from adult children is an epidemic that needs to be exposed." I spent the next 3 months writing When Love Hurts: Breaking Free from Family Emotional Abuse After 70. The book detailed not only my personal experience but also practical strategies for recognizing manipulation, setting healthy boundaries, and finding the courage to prioritize one's own happiness. It was published 8 months later and became a bestseller in several European and Latin American countries. The letters from readers moved me deeply. Women from around the world wrote that my story had given them the courage to change their lives. "I read your book and finally understood that I'm not a bad mother for refusing to keep supporting my 42-year-old son's irresponsibility," wrote Martha from Chile. "Your story helped me see that true love doesn't demand self-destruction," shared Teresa from Portugal. "After reading your book, I sold my big house and moved into an affordable apartment without relying on my children. For the first time in years, I sleep peacefully," Sophia from Argentina told me. But the letter that touched me most came a year after the book's release. It was from a young mother named Paula. "Mrs. Anderson," she wrote, "I'm 32 years old and have a 67-year-old mother who has sacrificed her whole life for me and my siblings. After reading your book, I realized we were treating her exactly the way Emily treated you. Your story opened my eyes and made me see I was repeating a toxic pattern that could destroy my relationship with my mother forever." Yesterday, I called her and apologized for taking her for granted all these years. I told her I wanted to help her fulfill her own dreams instead of expecting her to always be available for us. "Thank you for helping me understand before it was too late." That letter made me cry tears of joy. My pain had prevented other families from repeating the same tragedy. 2 years after moving to Spain, I received a handwritten letter in my mailbox. The handwriting on the envelope looked familiar, though I didn't recognize it at first. When I opened it, my heart raced. It was from my grandchildren, now 13. "Dear Grandma Patricia," they wrote in their uneven teenage script. "Dad told us the truth about why you left. He said Mom said very cruel things, and that's why you decided to start a new life far away. We want you to know that we miss you very much and understand why you left. We also want you to know that we're proud of you for being so brave. When we're older, we want to come to Spain to visit you, if you'll welcome us." The letter came with drawings of a happy grandmother walking the streets of Barcelona. I cried for an hour after reading it, not from sadness, but from the profound understanding that my decision to keep my dignity was right, even if it meant distancing myself from those I loved. I decided to reply, "My dear grandchildren, your words are the most beautiful gift I have received in many years. I love you deeply and always will, no matter the distance. When you are older and can make your own decisions, my heart and my home will always be open to you. Until then, I want you to know I am living a full and happy life, filled with beauty and peace. Hold on to the love you feel for me, but also learn from this experience. Words have the power to build or to destroy, and relationships must be based on mutual respect, not one-sided sacrifice. I love you with all my heart. Today, 3 years after that terrible birthday, the day that changed my life forever, I sit on the balcony of my new apartment in Barcelona, bought with my own money, gazing at the Mediterranean as I write the final lines of my life story. I am 77 years old, with assets worth over $6 million, a best-selling book translated into 8 languages, friends across the world, and an inner peace I never thought possible. Emily once wished me gone as a birthday gift. I gave her that, in the most extraordinary way. What she never expected was that in losing me, she didn't just lose a mother who loved her unconditionally. She also lost the person who had kept her financial world stable for decades. Just last week, I received an email from Emily, the first direct contact in 3 years. "Mom, I read your book. I never realized how much I hurt you, how much you sacrificed, and how badly I took you for granted. I'm not asking you to come back or to forgive me. I just want you to know I finally understand what you tried to teach me, even if it was the hardest way possible. I hope you're happy in your new life, because you deserve every happiness in the world." I didn't reply. Some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt. But I held her words in my heart, not as a victory, but as confirmation that pain can eventually turn into wisdom. My disappearance was the gift I gave her. This new life is the gift I gave myself, and it has been worth every tear, every sacrifice, every moment of pain that brought me here. Because sometimes, the only way to save yourself is to have the courage to lose everything, so you can be reborn as the person you were always meant to be. Looking back on my journey, I understand that love alone cannot sustain a relationship if it only flows one way. Motherhood is sacred, but when it turns into blind sacrifice, it becomes a chain. It took me years and countless tears to realize that real love does not mean allowing others to trample your dignity. Now, I carry no resentment. I choose gratitude, because the pain forced me to change, to rediscover my worth, and to build a life of peace. The greatest lesson I want to share is this: love, even between mother and child, requires mutual respect. Without it, the bond will only drive people apart. And what about you? Have you ever had to set boundaries with those you love in order to protect your peace? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might give strength to someone else. And if you'd like to keep reflecting, learning, and exploring life's journeys with me, follow along so you don't miss the next story. Together, we'll discover how to love without losing ourselves.